Off
The
we go.
moment's, I know, the moment's here. We've arrived. That little green bar at the top tells me we are live. I look over, here are the attendees: Angela, Ashley, Carissa, Carolyn. Wow, you guys are amazing. Y'all are the first in. Charlotte, Cindy. This is amazing. And always one of the most fun. Lori Joe, you know, your name brings a smile to my face every time. I love it. So good to see you here.
Great travel vertical this morning.
Yes, again, Jessica, good to see you. Ted Evers, of course, my friend. We're going back on LinkedIn earlier, so good to see you. Glad to have you join us. I know that you are going to love today's conversation. Dr. Pathak, yes, good to see you again. You know, Will, we've been doing this so long now. I feel like this is the Cheers moment. It's like we're sitting at the bar somewhere, and everybody we know keeps walking in. It's like, hey, what's going on?
It is the truth. You know, it's amazing. Over 2,000 people have attended one of these webinars. So that's phenomenal over the course of the, well, I guess we started back in March. And Josh, wow. I mean, you know, really fascinating to me is how much it's changed. The conversation has changed. And my other thing that's fascinating is how did it become August?
Seriously, I know. I feel like it was just like February, Marketing Leadership Summit in Orlando, February. It feels like that was last year. I mean, it's just, oh, it's been crazy. Jeremy Harvey, my friend, BTD, right? What rolls? There we go. Love it. So good to see you. Always good to have you guys. And again, everybody that's tuning in, we got 52 of you joining in. We're going to dive in. This is a great conversation. You've registered, you've probably read, we're talking agility, fast marketing. You may even recognize some of our faces, certainly me and Will perhaps, and Katie Cook. So glad to have you. Thanks for joining us, Katie.
Thanks for having me.
And Scott, my friend, really good to see you and glad to have you. Thanks for tuning in and joining us today as well. How did you get Scott off the golf course to do this webinar?
You have it wrong. How did you get me off the boat? I haven't picked up the golf clubs in forever.
I love it. That's fantastic. And as you guys know, you're probably tuning in and you are Zoom experts. You are the aficionados now, but in case you don't, you can put us all on gallery view and see us a little easier. And that's a lot of fun. And of course, feel free to let us know that you're here and give us a shout out on chat or the Q&A as we talk, and let us know what questions you got or any other hot takes. And we'll engage and do the best we can to answer those. And so, you know, let's just dive in. Will, we wanted to talk about agility and fast marketing because one of the things that, I mean, clearly, we're in a, you know, things are changing daily, and it's not necessarily congruent with the way that we have been used to operating as a DMO, right? I mean, as a DMO, we would get together maybe annually, maybe every 18 months, couple years, whatever. We put together a plan, and then we do something, and then we just go execute that plan. You know what I mean? And we may make changes here and there, but mostly it's like, we point back to the plan that we have, right? And that's what we do, and that's what it informs, which isn't necessarily congruent with certainly congruent with what we are experiencing now with this ever-changing market, and consumer mindset, consumer behavior. But it wasn't necessarily congruent even before the pandemic either. So this is probably just exposing something, some needed evolution and pivots, right? Wouldn't you say?
No, I do. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the market that we're in, you know, the organizational structures, the strategies, and how we set up our marketing plans we were all optimized for a great time when everything was going well and everything was, you know, positive, and we had the staff, we had the planning, we had everything kind of working forward, and there was no real reason to change because everything was, you know, looking up. But now it does kind of expose some of those kind of weaknesses in the plan, and recognizing that, you know, this isn't going to change. You know, it's going to be volatile for several, you know, years, if not, you know, many months, that we're going to have to be much more adaptive to changing circumstances. And I think if we do it correctly as destination marketers, really set a path for being much more efficient, much more effective, and smarter marketers moving forward. But we're gonna have to train ourselves how to react quicker, how to plan quicker, how to identify what those, what the goals are for each individual little campaign.
We're challenged by some bandwidth there on you, Will, but I think we get the gist of what you're saying. Scott, I want to, first of all, good to see you. I know you guys are dealing with some storms and stuff out there. So how are you doing? How's the family, the house, destination, et cetera? How are you guys doing right now?
Well, thanks for asking, and good to see everybody on the call today. Myrtle Beach as a whole fared very well. Our friends just to the north of us across the border didn't. So we're very thankful. We're happy. In fact, some of our properties in North Myrtle Beach are the beneficiaries of a bunch of folks across the border coming to stay with them for the next short period. So, we always try to help our neighbor, but it's tough when these storms hit, and it's even tougher when they're hitting so fast and frequent. And we're not too optimistic about this season.
Yeah, I totally
of COVID, right? So that's the other caveat.
No, exactly. And COVID is not missing any of us, that's for sure. Katie, again, thank you for joining. Good to see you. How are things? I'm assuming you're in Austin still, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, most of probably a lot of the attendees know me from my days at Visit Austin. I was there more than 18 years. And then I joined the Simple View team in January. So just about 2 months before things kind of got weird in our world, right? But yeah, no, I am still based in the Austin area. So yeah, I'm sitting in my house outside of Austin right now. But yeah, happy to be here for sure.
And will we get to see any kids popping in there behind you?
No, our cat may wander in because she does that, but hopefully it's not distracting. But no, my kids are busy. They're good.
I've got attendees have probably seen me in front of the bookshelf. I've got several buddies that give me a good time, give me some laughs about the bookshelf behind me. But I've got a door here to my left, and every now and then one of my kids will jump in and poke their head in, and I just kind of go, nope, leave me alone, I'm busy.
You need a big recording sign. You need a recording sign on your door.
Right. So when we think, let's just dive in and think agility and fast marketing, and it's always, we throw terms around. We can throw terms around, buzzwords, and not necessarily know what we're talking about. So let's create a little bit of a level playing field here, Katie. When we think about agility or fast marketing, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's a difference of agile marketing and agility, right? I mean, but it's the same idea that you're kind of constantly iterating on what is working. You're like, tracking, how things are going on a regular basis, and not just like leave it in one spot and forget it. So you're just constantly evolving that and improving upon what you're doing. I think fast marketing is the idea that you're doing something purposeful to kind of get a quick result, right? So whether that's, having to respond to, this COVID situation where you need to do a staycation promotion to get some business to your local partners. I mean, that's kind of a fast marketing example. So that's my explanation of the two. Hopefully that's what you're thinking. Yeah.
Scott, what about you? What would you add to that? How do you think about this category that we're talking about?
No, Katie hit it head on. And I think what a lot of us have to grapple with right now is, any kind of semblance of an annual or seasonal plan has been thrown out the window with what we're dealing with. And I think what we're trying to do best now is basically converge what Katie just said between fast marketing and agile marketing, so that we are looking at what's going on really on a daily basis with consumer sentiment, and what markets can we be trying to entice visitation, and if not today, then for the future. And so we're constantly leveraging a lot of tools, many of which I know we'll probably get into talking about social media, but for us, social media is really the starting point, because it allows us to not only look at engagement metrics, but more importantly, really gauge the consumer sentiment. And does that helps shape the decision as to how big and expansive do we take all of our other marketing channels into a specific market. And so we start there and then we build from that. Because as you can imagine, you know, many states in the South, Myrtle Beach was in the national news here not too long ago we had an amazing May. We opened early, pent up demand, our marketing practices that we installed in March and April really worked well in the markets and audiences that we were targeting. And so we really just had an amazing May. And then fast forward when a lot of folks came here from all across the country, and then all of a sudden now we're the COVID hotspot. And when you have governors of West Virginia and Virginia telling their people not to come to Myrtle Beach because they're going to catch COVID, well, you know, you have to figure out what are you doing quickly. So you talk about being fast and agile. It's putting the right tools in place that can give you a semblance as to, does that mean everybody thinks that way? We find out, no, they don't. Do we take a lot of heat for still promoting in some markets that are sensitive to what's going on? Yes. And so we learn from that, but we evolve our messaging quickly. Sometimes we use automation, other times it's a manual process, and we do different things in different markets. But I think we've put in place a practice that allows us to quickly assess market sentiment, because each ones are different, and then gauge our level of investment and other channel promotion against that. And it's worked fairly well for us.
Yeah, I love that you're bringing up sentiment in markets, because I think that is one. I haven't heard a lot of DMOs talking about. Man, they'll do sentiment analysis. They'll do a local resident sentiment, right? And then they'll do maybe broad sentiment, brand sentiment, right? But I love that you're talking about on social, really leveraging by market. How does this market feel about you? Talk to us a little bit about how you guys are doing that, because I think that's a great tactic for all of us on the call as we were thinking about how to think, how we see that engagement and what is that telling us? What can we listen to from that and learn from it?
Well, we put in a kind of a basic model. It's team intensive on the front end, and then we move to some automated processes. But initially, we'll place marketing, and we'll start with Facebook as a platform. And anytime a market, as long as positive sentiment is 90% or more, we basically stay the course, and we will initially start to try and leverage other channels. When it dips below 90%, then we change our messaging. A lot of our messaging right now, because we're not necessarily planning for the future, our folks really want to try to salvage some of their summer business, there is a more direct response. When that direct response message by market starts to not have favorable positive consumer sentiment, we use 90% as that first level measurement. When it falls below that, we start to shift the messaging to something more higher funnel message. And then if it ever dips below 75%, which it has, we may pause that market for a short time period until that works out. And so then, we'll constantly be testing. Sometimes we'll use Facebook's automated practices. You can test up to 5 images and 5 copy points and let that run. Sometimes we already know what some of our top images are performing. And so we'll round that out with 4 or 5 different message points to see what optimizes quickly, because you get that back in 48 hours. So it's a real quick way to be able to see if you latch on to something that's working, and then we'll manage it from there. And each market is considerably different. And for us, because we've been on a plethora of states quarantine list, it's been something that we've had to be very nimble about and approach every major market a little bit differently. But those tools readily help our team be able to do that pretty quickly. And you mentioned earlier, I mean, that's the biggest thing. Last year, at a lot of our, sessions, we were all talking about, well, if you could add staff, what would you add? And we talked about data. We talked about a lot of different, research and insights and analytics and all this. But let's face it, all of us now are wearing multiple hats than what we did last year. Our teams are smaller. All of us are doing things that, I'm even running some things that I would typically just manage in the past. And that just speaks to really the time that we're in right now. And if you already started from a really small team, that's even that much more challenging. So sign of the times.
Yeah, we got a couple of great questions. I just want to follow up real quickly. I mean, Lori Joe says, do you suppose that using 90% is being too tough, right? And then Kim wants to know, how do you measure above 90 or below 75?
Well, that's why I said it's a team time intensive, because we're going through and we're looking at any of the comments that have a negative connotation. So it's subjective by our team, but they go through thousands upon thousands of comments. But we're able to do that, right? So I'd say we have a handful of people that help out in that process. And we use 90% because typically whenever we run ads in any of our markets, we've never gotten, anywhere near down to 90%. It's always been usually 98, 99% positive in everything we've done. I mean, destination marketing, it's really hard to have some negative sentiment. Oh, I don't really want to go on vacation or go see a beautiful beach. So that to us, 90% is conservative. And for us, we don't really want to, we'd rather change our messaging up and see if we can't change some hearts and minds first before we take another approach. So that's just something we've done on our own. And we just felt that's just, it's worked well. It's not a hard and fast rule, but anything close to that.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that's interesting, Katie, I want you to jump in here because like myself, having been on the DMO side for so long, and then now, being kind of on the agency side, like you're seeing, you get visibility into things that you didn't necessarily have visibility into before, Yeah. And so what are you seeing from this, from the clients that you're working with, the destinations that you have visibility into?
In regards to kind of some of the things Scott was saying about, I mean, definitely this time to switch over has been interesting because I am able to see such a broad perspective of destinations, right? And there's so much variances, I have one client that I work with that's, based on a beautiful lake, and they are doing really well this summer because everyone wants to go to a beach, right? Like everyone is talking about that. And so, but then I'm, working with some clients that are in an urban destination and they're really hurting. So I think this has been an interesting time for me to be able to see, like you said, Josh, just so many different types of destinations. I think, speaking to kind of the agility of social media and targeting, I think that, there's definitely some marketing channels that allow you to do that easier. And I think, Scott, you mentioned earlier the idea of using social media to target a certain geo market and then using those learnings to do bigger media buys in that market. Like, I think that's really, really smart. Because I think things like you can learn a lot from the marketing that you are doing. And then with, the agility theme, be able to make those shifts based on what
from a messaging standpoint, right? Because there's so many different
targeting
things
too.
And targeting,
Yeah. So things like, your email list. I think a lot of marketers forget that email is, it's not as sexy as maybe some of the things like social media is, but you're able to learn a lot from your email list. If you're seeing the last couple months, some subscribers really engaging with you, I mean, segment those off. Those are the people that are probably most likely to be visiting you in the near future, right? Because they're really engaged with your content, even during a time like this. So I think there's definitely some channels and tactics that you can learn from, even if you don't have a big budget.
Well, I love that you bring up email because anybody that knows me or necessarily follows me online, I talk about email a lot. I've written a lot about it, even on, back in former days on the DMO side, we had a really advanced email program, and it is such a huge opportunity for DMOs that are looking at budgets, looking at reduced budgets. Right. This is an owned channel. This is something that it costs very, very little to do anything with. And yet, when you look at averages across all channels, we love social. I love that we're talking about social, but email returns far greater than social, on your ad spend and your marketing investment. And so it's a really great channel to think about things. And one of the things we were talking about as we were preparing for this call was like, what other industries inspire us, to think a little bit more agile or a little bit faster. And Will, one of the things you brought up was retail. And I agree completely. I follow retail. I love studying and reverse engineering campaigns. And why did they do that? Why does the most interesting man alive, resonate with me so much? Why does Dos Equis? Why do they do such a great job? And thinking about all that kind of stuff. And we were talking about this. if you can see this all across retail, especially clothing and stuff like this. But if you're a fan of Gap, and everybody has examples of this, I'm sure we can bring up. If you experience this, drop it in the chat so we can see it. But if you go to the Gap's website, and if you're a member, or if you have a Gap card, or for me, it's actually Banana Republic. There you go. I'll tip my hat for you a little bit. But if I go to Banana Republic's website, you better believe within minutes I receive an email from Banana Republic, right? Because they know that they have that intelligence, they connect those services together. But Will, talk to us a little bit about retail and what you think, and what DMOs can be learning from some of that.
I just think there's so many opportunities again in this idea of quick, fast marketing. It's very, very transactional oriented. Because they're about selling something, yet they do a very good job with the brand integration and the consumer patterns. But I even think to apparel and the fast fashion and doing market research, coming out 2 months in advance of when the line is going to be fresh, and they have to create the demand, create the the product and the marketing, and it has to all hit. So I just think that's a really interesting kind of comparison to travel, where we've got high season, low season, shoulder seasons that we're kind of used to doing different messaging on. But I think we kind of have been in a place where it's kind of set the campaign, kind of already know who the market is, and that's all changing so fast now that we can learn from some of those just quicker campaigns with really new KPIs that we're able to monitor and track, not track 8,000 different metrics, but just track a couple metrics for that specific campaign for that specific time frame. Will I think help us coming out of this in a year or two, whenever people are traveling. We'll be much more nimble, much more agile, much more focused on the metrics that matter.
Yeah, I agree. I think vanity metrics are not important. I mean, we should be ignoring impressions and things like that, right? What are the KPIs that matter to you, as a destination marketer, and to your partners, and really hone in on those and make sure those are measured as much as possible so that you can, make those adjustments as needed. So I think Josh and I love talking about KPIs and conversions. We've sent texts back and forth, which is kind of a geeky thing to do, but
it is a geeky thing. But again, it's kind of like, it's asking better questions of what we do, and looking at the systems we build, and then going, does this system that we built, is it working toward what we need to be doing? And if it doesn't, then let's change it. Let's fix it. Let's optimize it. Let's be able to be quicker about the things we do. Scott, you mentioned this earlier, but one of the industries you said that inspires you, that you look at, is automotive. And I love that too, because I pay attention to automotive as well. But what is it about automotive that inspires you and finds you, kind of taps into some of the creativity and stuff that you guys do at Myrtle Beach?
I just think that automotive is on the cutting edge of being very immersive online, where you can, look at their product in multiple vantage points. You can customize it. You can almost start using multiple senses to get an idea of, is that automobile for you, right? So I just think that their technology is pretty amazing, and then how they market from that as well to customize. But as much as I talk about that, not that we can necessarily duplicate that in my mind as well as they functionally do it online. When we take some of these simple tools, such as going live on Facebook, to me, that's a way for us to be very immersive. And that's when we see the biggest response from, our audience segments. And, when they see a sunrise on the beach, they can hear the seagulls, they can see some dolphins in the distance. What a great time to look at the commentary, but also engage folks, because they're so immersed in being there. And I think that was the biggest thing leading into May, when we had such a banner May this year, when everybody was, stuck at home for over a month. I mean, we had this concept of sending you a little sunshine. Each and every day we would wake up with folks on the beach, showing them a sunrise, and just sharing with them what it's like to be outdoors and on the beach, where you can have a lot of space and distance. And the amount of, sentiment that we saw from that, it was it was probably the best thing we've ever done. And there were comments on there that were, I mean, seriously heartfelt, from how important that made some people's days start off and how it made them feel. And so that to us is just something that just takes a little bit of time and effort to do. And I don't know how you get any more immersive through, you know, the technology than that for us. But me personally, when I look at the automotive sites, those are pretty cool. But I think we have some opportunities with still using our webcams and still using our FaceTime Live or Facebook Live, and really being able to make an impact to people that aren't physically here.
I love that. I have a buddy, I have a couple of really good friends in automotive, which is why I pay attention to it. And one of them will do Facebook Live sitting, and I won't give it away, but he'll sit inside the vehicle and he'll just turn it on and let you listen, right? He'll just do the sound of the engine, you know what I mean? And for that enthusiast, right? Again, they know that audience. And for that enthusiast, it's like, you know, I love listening to that. Harleys are the same way. If you're a Harley owner, if you're a Harley owner, that is a patented sound. You know that Harley sound no matter where you go, right? That's funny. But Jeremy, you're attending, so I'm going to call you out here, because Visit Savannah has done a great job of some of these peaceful walks through parks and things, and I've seen that across my feed on Facebook. And I'll tell you, I get sucked into it. It's like that 2.5, 3 minute moment of Zen is just the perfect thing. Wow. And so you talk about developing that emotional connection with a brand. That's perfect. You guys do a great job of that, Scott. I know St. Pete Clearwater does a great job of that too. Leroy and his team.
Discover LA was doing a sunset every night as well. I don't know if they're still doing it, but on their Facebook, it's just like a sunset live. I mean, it's just beautiful. I tuned in every night too. So. No,
absolutely. And you think about this too. I remember, I think every destination has versions of this. Scott, to your point, like, we might not all have beaches, but it's not always a sunset, right? It's not always a beach, or it's not always this, beautiful walk in a park or something. It could be, fresh donuts being made, right? I mean, I've seen so many donut cams out there, and it's just like, you look at it, it's like, oh man, that looks so good. I know I can almost taste it, right? There's all kinds of ways to think about immersion and immersive experiences, right? So I love that.
Yeah, I have to quickly give the example of Austin, just because, there's still my family over there too. They've been doing really great live music. So they're live streaming local musicians, and then there's it's like a benefit as well. So like the proceeds go to a local musician charity. So I think they've been doing a great job, and I've been tuning into all of those concerts as well. So. Yeah.
Well, and what I love about that too, right, is it's not, Will, your point, that one of the things about retail, you're right, it is purely transactional focused, right? They are optimized for the transaction, right? And they understand it's this number of steps. Our cart abandonment rate is a key KPI they look at, and they build systems around that, right? But for DMOs that aren't necessarily controlling the transaction, they're at a different stage in the funnel. And now, Scott, you're talking about this. We may not be open destinations, some various place of open versus not open. Some destinations are banned. It's really, it's a mix of a lot of different things going on. But simple things like live music on Facebook through that destination. Like one of the things I know for Austin, to me, one, I love it because I grew up in Texas a little bit, but Austin food, right? So every time, even if it's live music, I'm remembering and thinking and recalling great Austin food. And so that sentiment is connecting with me. And I go, I'm going to come back to Austin. Of course I'm going to, you know what I mean? Yeah. And that can happen at scale over and over and over again, which is great. Lori's got a great comment. Shout out to Gathan's Visit Lex Thoroughbreds too. Yeah. I thought about too, the immersive, sound of just listening to that. There's all kinds of examples, I think that we could take advantage of and deploy and that. So let's shift back just a second though to KPIs, because I do think it's hard. It can be hard, at least I've heard this. It's hard to think about KPIs because, again, bottom funnel conversions are really different. Even when we start to talk about conversions, it's like, well, what are you talking about? What do you mean? What kind of conversion are you talking about? You know what I mean? So, Katie, what KPIs are you giving counsel to that should be the most important for the DMO?
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously mostly looking at the website KPIs, but we're obviously helping with other marketing initiative KPIs as well. But when it comes down to getting to the website, I mean, it's not just about a session, right? It's about an engaged session or a qualified session, just that kind of idea that you're wanting them to take, either spend time there, do a conversion like a visitor guide or newsletter request. Book a partner referral is really, really important, just driving that traffic to your partners. So those are all KPIs that we're helping DMOs, really set and be able to measure and monitor. But yeah, in terms of other KPIs, I mean, obviously there's things in place, working with partners like, the Adaras and Sojourns of the world to actually see booking and searches, things of that nature. But I think, yeah, it's about what's important for your destination. There's some slight differences, like Scott's is a little bit different of a DMO focus than some. So they're all a little bit different. So what are you trying to achieve? Like, what is your main goal? And then making sure that KPI is in place. And like I said, you're monitoring it so that you can make those changes as needed. I think.
Well, and Scott's model is probably the most transactional of any DMO in the country. So I think you can learn a lot there of how you manage to not only do the branding, but also move people as fast as you can down into booking a room, which is what your charge is.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and Scott, you were talking about that. I love that because I would certainly say you are probably having infrastructure that allows you that, but you've invested in it intentionally to really be able to understand this and enact on it more as well, right?
Yeah, it's been a concerted effort of ours for quite some time. And within the last year and a half, we've been able to make it come to fruition. So, Will is right. There's so many different KPIs that we have for, different platforms and different channels. But the most important for us is finally proving out, to our membership and our stakeholders, a good percentage of our investment is what does that actually return to the destination? And so the only way we could ever get to, because what if DMOs never had a closed loop marketing system, right? So we don't ever really sell a room or a product. And we could never prove that we could even do that when we put a booking engine on our website to any significant levels. So what we've been able to do is put together a market level data structure. So we've got a tech stack over the destination, about 75 properties in the area that are all connected to the same GA 360 analytics platform. So it gives us a whole lot of insights as to what's happening market-wide at the market level, from all the different types of touch points that you get from GA. But what it's allowed us to do is really focus now on which media investments, whether it's by individual ad from a creative execution to which channels overall, so we can bucket them in different ways, but what returns the greatest revenue to the destination. So whether that goes directly as a linkage from our website to a partner, or whether it starts on our website, they go off somewhere else, they book, 12 days later at a partner's website. Now that we're connected, we can see all that flow that happens. And so we're measuring all that activity, and we can then track that in the system back to individual ad sources. So it's something that we've been wanting to do for a while. You can only do it if your partners allow you to do it. So for Myrtle Beach, it's very unique. We still have a substantial amount of properties that are non-branded. It's a lot easier to do with a non-branded property, as you can imagine. And so that affords us the opportunity to put this architecture in place. And so now we know that 70% of our investment is digital. Every single thing that we do has a UTM tag. And so all that is being tracked across this big ecosystem. So we only take credit if it touches our website, or if it was something that we bought a content play on behalf of a few partners in it. And then, all that is tracked and measured. And so we can see daily how much revenue and which source was that generated from. And that allows us to be really quick to optimize against that. So there's a lot of different things that we're able to do, but that is a key metric for us now. And one that, you know, I don't have to actually report to the stakeholders. Those stakeholders that are part of this platform, they see the same thing I see in their dashboards. And so they don't have to ever guess, is that legitimate or not? They know the value of what we're driving to them. And now they look at us as probably their best performing marketing channel that they have, bar none, because we're still doing more of the heavy lifting, but they're getting that conversion. And so they have to invest in us in order to be a part of that, but it allows us to be able to drive results that we could never do previous to this.
That's great. Sorry, I was going to interject that is what I feel like is needed, because I think the partners locally are going to have less and less marketing spend, right? So the fact that they can see that value from your DMO is, I think that's huge.
It's one channel, but it's a good channel for them to have. I would say if you ask a handful of them, where would they invest their next dollar, it would be with us first before they'd even put it in Google.
That's great.
I love that. I love that because in many ways, Scott, you are leading us all to think about, okay, we say that we have these partnerships in place and we say that the DMO's role is this, and this is what we do. You've literally taken that to the next step and said, let's build on these, let's act on it, right? And so that's what I love this so much. I think for a lot of destinations that are maybe even on the call today, the webinar today, and you're thinking, gosh, you know, I will point out, you said you got unbranded properties, which does make a difference, right? But the one thing that we all have in common right now is, Katie, to your point, urban destinations everywhere are looking, and suburban destinations are going, gosh, what do we do? What do we do? It's really a great opportunity to reach out and develop these kind of conversations, move them down the road a little bit toward this, right? I mean, talk about ways and foster conversations. We've talked about this over the last several weeks, Will, is like foster ways of how can we evolve our partnership, continue to work together, so that we can be more agile, right? So that we can actually see.
Stakeholder engagement. I mean, stakeholder engagement, it has to be a focus right now. That's probably now more than ever. I don't know.
And you're right. I mean, the technology is out there that allows us to do this. So there are lots of people that can help, but I love it because it's, we're talking about what other industries inspire us. And if you look at all these other industries that inspire us, whether we mention them or not, it's almost like, can you imagine the Nike boardroom and they're going, hey, how successful were we? And somebody saying, oh, we don't know. Yeah. And that being okay, you know, I mean, like, can you imagine that being allowed? No, it's like, no, we need to find that out. We need to understand that. What do we need to do to understand that? And then that's the road they start taking. So I love that, Scott, you've done that a little bit and you're leading us all in that. And I mean, I think that would be transformational for our industry, for us to be having more and more of those kind of conversations.
Well, the thing that I like best about it is because there's so much data that flows through the entire platform that we're getting to the point to where, you know, we can start to ask the types of questions as to, you know, which market performs best, which audiences within that market perform best, because there's all kinds of information that is being collected and gathered that it's going to give us insights much more quickly and allow us to almost create our own query system as to, you know, how do we want to grow markets going forward. So it's helpful that, like I said, it's unique to Myrtle Beach. Our model basically predicated that something like this needed to happen. And so it's a benefit for the folks that are at the table. But as Will said, you also have to still balance the typical and traditional role of a DMO, and that's to, you know, create demand for the area in the first place.
But I think in this time, what you're doing, Scott, with the testing and, you know, market by market testing and, is something else that's going to happen. I don't think we've necessarily created campaigns or had different messages in different markets as much as we're probably going to need to moving forward. So if it's a regional drive market, that might be one message and one call to action. If it's a major feeder market, it might be something else. So I think it's going to require more work or automation, one or the other, to help us be successful across, a very, very disparate group of customers across different markets with different attitudes.
And
Exactly.
But isn't that what we already know, Will? Like, I mean, I kind of want to go, don't we already know this to be true? Isn't this the entire reason why we know UGC has exploded as a category? And isn't this entirely why we know that when we use intelligence through personalization, whether that's dynamic content on a website or via an email, we see better engagement, right? And there is something about human behavior that says, when I am communicated to like I am known, I am more inclined to do the thing that you want me to do, right? So it makes sense. I have a buddy, speaking in another industry I follow, I love entertainment as a whole, but comics, especially the comic book industry, is a really fascinating niche to pay attention to. And I have a buddy of mine who is, he's a Facebook genius, and I bow at his feet, so to speak, with his brilliance. But the way that he tests and targets messages based on the behavior he knows, you like Batman more than you like Superman, right? Things like this, it is fantastic, the results he produces when he does that, right? And so I'm often, emailing him or calling him, and now he works with CBS Interactive. So, but I'm like, okay, what do you think about this? And to your point, Will and Scott, good job for doing that well. I think that is, if we take anything away from this time, look at that. Look at your markets. If you're marketing somebody to Alabama, call them out as being a fan of Alabama, or even think about it like this: is there a college rivalry thing, right? I mean, is there a psychographic that you can deploy there? Is it Auburn versus Alabama or whoever? You know what I mean? There are lots of things that you can deploy there and test, to your point. And then, Katie, like you were saying, test it before you do any kind of paid media buy or do anything like that.
Yeah,
those are great suggestions.
I know it's based on budget. Obviously, DMOs only have so many dollars, but I feel like that I've always been surprised that once you get to the website, there's not a lot of thought into like there's not a lot of personalization still on DMO websites, and there's still not a lot of like conversion rate optimization. There's not a lot of work to you're spending all this money to get them to your site, and that's like your main CTA from all your ads. But then once they get there, it's not really optimized, right? So I feel like that's something that when budgets maybe come back, or if people decide that is a priority, that could be maybe one of the things that could help.
Yeah, you're triggering one of my hot buttons there, so I'm having to refrain myself a little bit. But that's clearly would be another great session. I think we could probably have an idea session around personalization and
right. Practical
ways to do that. I know nobody from Bound is on. I know Andrea and Mary Claire have joined many times in the past. They would love that. And but Scott, and I know we're running up on time because I want to be respectful of everybody's time, but Lily's got a good question. I'd love for you to answer, if you don't mind, Scott. She says, can you share more about your ad creative? And curious how strong the CTA is to your hotel partners versus the overall beach inspiration.
Yeah, great question. And we might be able to move that offline if you want to, because that's probably a longer winded answer, because a lot of it depends as to what we're trying to do. As we have retail messaging and we're doing a lot of direct response, it's not necessarily individual properties, but it has a lot to do with influencing a booking at accommodations. So we've got hundreds of different iterative campaign aspects of that. Sometimes we will actually promote an individual business. And we're probably going to be doing a little bit more of that towards the end of the year. We, in our method of bringing stakeholders into the mix and their investments in with us, we do provide certain benchmark guarantees as the amount of activity that they get from us. And if somebody seems to not organically, through the efforts that we're doing to promote and impact their business, we will be doing some individual promotion with them. And a lot of times it's just introducing them into our current advertising paths and channels that we already have, and then customizing a message about them. But we still feel, I would still say the majority of the advertisement that we do, of course, is getting somebody inspired and interested in Myrtle Beach, but we will make a very quick handoff to our properties and our members. And so we do, I will say also in this ecosystem that we've built, the other thing that I didn't mention, which is why, you know, we're just in the first year of running this program. There's definitely phased approaches to it, but one of the enhancements to why we have this market level application is because not only when we put creative assets into this system, it allows our partners to be able to draw from them without necessarily having to email us or ask us for anything, and vice versa. Whatever they're marketing and promoting is part of this system, so that if we want to draw something from there, I don't necessarily have to, you know, call up somebody, wait for them to get back to us, say, hey, what do you want? It's just already in this library of shared assets that people are using to market and promote. Some of it's individually created, some of it's UGC that we're all cross sharing through licensing rights. So it gives us a library from which to draw from real quickly. As this is building, it's just going to make us even more nimble and able to move quicker, because the biggest challenge I think a lot of us have is, you know, you want to have those stakeholder engagements, but trying to then, you know, remind people to send you content so you can put it up on a page, or you want to push it out individually or share it on social or include it in an email. Sometimes that process is arduous. So built into this, because we're all marketing, it's got a marketing stack layer to it as well. This is going to really help us share assets by direction.
I love that. Quick follow-up from Lori Jo. Did you build the system yourself?
No, we did not. Most of you probably have maybe heard of a company called Flip2 that's in the UGC aspect of the hotel path. I introduced them to our hotel group a couple years back, and I sat down with them over time and liked the technology that they have, but they said this should be something that we should probably leverage with DMOs. And so we helped them build an advocacy platform for Visit Myrtle Beach. In doing so, you know, I kept talking with their folks, and I said, well, here's where we'd like to go to the next level if we could, since we already have that technology in place. They already are tapped into the booking engines of our partners, because they're driving incremental sales through their advocacy platform. We weren't driving sales, we were just driving engagement and shareability of, you know, our destination experience, which was in and of itself a benefit to the destination. Very cost effective for us to do just that component. But what we saw, this bigger piece is saying, okay, the infrastructure that they have is already there. Let's fine tune that a bit. Let's get Google and get GA360 and apply that across the board, so that now we can have this deeper analytics platform that's layered across this technology. And now we can start to build other types of capabilities, because we have this foundation in place. So it's been something that's evolved over the last couple of years, always with the end goal that this is what I thought we could get to, and it's working right now really well. And it's just, again, it's going to be something that continues to evolve as we go forward.
I love that. It's fantastic. I'm just posting a link here to everybody in the, oh, let me put this, I sent it to Wendy, but I'll post this for everybody, all panelists and attendees. Here you go. So you can check that out and learn more. But, you know, it's fantastic. Maybe on another future ETS session there, Will, right? We can get Scott to give us a little bit more of a deep dive or something like that.
Yeah, the data's pretty cool. It's just something we've never had, right? And
I love it.
It's only going to get better. And so, yeah, we're excited about it. I'm very excited about it. So I'd love to share once we can really do some deep dives into the data, but it's pretty cool.
It is super cool. I love it. Well, we've got just a few minutes left, and Scott, I know you're backed up against a time there, but any closing thoughts as we are, maybe even helpful tips or techniques? Katie, let's start with you. Anything you want to kind of throw in here into the mix for us?
I guess I would just stress the idea of measuring, measuring your KPIs and determining, and they may have changed since March. So keeping that in mind, and don't feel like you have to measure or report out everything, because sometimes I think people spend more time tracking and reporting out than they do on the marketing. Just kind of hone in on what's important right now. And then, can I give a shout out to you guys last episode covered podcasts? Can I just give a shout out to the Layover Live, just because that's my project. We every week put out a digital marketing episode that's video and podcast. So Layover Live, I've been getting guests, and it's been a fun project, and really helping destination marketers kind of navigate what's happening right now too. So.
Oh, I love that too. Yeah. I love that. That's fantastic. Scott, any closing thoughts, my friend?
Well, there's been a lot we talked about. The one thing I'll just say is, I sometimes get challenged with, there's so much I want to do, and I get boggled down by thinking too big. I guess my thought would be is start small, find one market, use some of these basic tools that don't cost you very much, and just start testing, and then hone your craft in on what you want to do for you. There's some manual work in it, and sometimes that pushes it, down, kicks the can down the street a little bit, if you will. But find a market, go in there, use some of these things we talked about, and just figure out for yourself, how can you best, learn what's going on with consumer sentiment, and then do some tests. Even if you just do manual tests and don't automate any part of the process, try some things out and look at those results. Because if you can just figure out for yourself in your destination how it works in one market, then you can start to expand it. And as you do, when you get to that scale, you start to see, better results. And it just takes a little bit of time, because as we were all talking about, we have got to figure out a way to do different things in different markets, because you will see bigger and better wins when you get to that point.
Absolutely. I love that. That's fantastic. Will, any closing thoughts as we wrap up here?
No, I actually just build on what Scott said. I think this is a newer skill for destination marketers, moving quick and having really highly defined campaigns in a really quick time frame, and it's going to take practice. And I just piggyback on what Scott said. Test it, try it, learn, and the more we do it, the better we'll get.
Absolutely, I agree completely. And just want to say, thanks Cheryl and Sarah and Rachel, Millie, Leslie, Kim, Kelly. Gosh, so many of you, Cindy, Charlotte, Carolyn, Carissa, for joining. Thank you again, everybody, for tuning in. And then, reach out. We're all on LinkedIn. Grab our emails. If you don't have us, feel free. Reach out, connect to us. All of us. Scott, I know, would probably be available as well. And then as we do these, as we continue to do these, if you wanted to feature your destination, right? If you want to be a guest on a future one of these, let Will or I know. Reach out, message us on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect. You can find me on LinkedIn very easily, but thank you again for giving up your time and joining us, and we hope to see you next time. Have a great rest of the week.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Josh.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Will. Katie, good seeing you.
Yeah, good seeing you too, Scott.
Take care.
Thanks.